The morphine was wearing off when I saw Ethan's Instagram story. There I was, lying in the hospital bed with a shattered collarbone and 3 broken ribs, watching my boyfriend of 4 years posting pictures from some rooftop bar downtown. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m, 20 minutes after I'd called him, crying, begging him to come see me. "I'm really swamped at work, babe. You know how it is." That's what he'd said. Work. At midnight on a Saturday. In the video, I could see Jessica's laugh in the background. Jessica from his office. Jessica with the perfect teeth and the way too friendly text that he swore meant nothing. My thumb hovered over his contact. I could call again. I could explain that the accident was worse than I'd let on, that the doctors were worried about internal bleeding, that I was scared and alone and needed him. Instead, I deleted his number. The nurse who came to check my vitals was named Patricia. She had kind eyes and steady hands, and when she saw me staring at my phone with tears streaming down my face, she didn't ask questions. She just handed me tissues and adjusted my pillow. "Rough night?" she asked gently. "My boyfriend," I started, then stopped. What was I supposed to say? That the man I'd planned to marry couldn't be bothered to visit me in the hospital because he was too busy getting drunk with his co-worker. "He's busy," I finished lamely. Patricia's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. She'd probably seen this before. "Well," she said, checking my IV drip, "some people show their true colours when things get tough. Consider yourself lucky you found out now." After she left, I stared at the ceiling tiles and thought about the last 4 years. All those times Ethan had promised to be there for me. All those conversations about our future together. The engagement ring I knew he'd been shopping for, but never quite got around to buying. The accident had been random. A drunk driver running a red light while I was walking home from dinner with my friend Maya. Maya, who'd actually shown up at the hospital within 20 minutes of getting my call. Maya, who'd held my hand while they set my bones and promised to stay until my family arrived. Except my family lived 3 states away, and the person I'd chosen as my family here had better things to do. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Hope you're feeling better. Get some rest. Love you." No mention of visiting. No apology for not coming. Just a casual dismissal wrapped in hollow affection. I turned the phone face down and closed my eyes. 3 days later, I was discharged. Maya picked me up because Ethan had a crucial client meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. She helped me up the stairs to my apartment, the one I shared with him, and settled me on the couch with tea and pain medication. That's when I found the receipt. It was crumpled in the pocket of the jacket Ethan had worn Friday night. The jacket that was supposed to be at the dry cleaners, but was instead hanging on our bedroom chair. A receipt from Laurent's, the French restaurant downtown. The expensive one, dinner for 2, wine, dessert. The total was more than Ethan usually spent on my birthday. The date on the receipt was Saturday, the night of my accident. My hands shook as I smoothed out the paper. While I was lying broken on the emergency room table, Ethan was buying Jessica dinner at the most romantic restaurant in the city. I called Maya. "He wasn't at work," I said when she answered. "He was on a date." The silence on the other end stretched for so long I thought the call had dropped. "Amelia?" Maya's voice was deadly quiet. "Where are you right now?" "Home. I found a receipt." "I'm coming over. Don't do anything until I get there." But I wasn't planning to do anything dramatic. I was too tired for screaming or confrontation. Instead, I sat on the couch staring at that receipt and felt something inside me crystallize into perfect cold clarity. Ethan arrived home at 6, whistling. Actually. Whistling? He found me exactly where Maya had left me, still holding the receipt. "Hey, babe, how are you feeling? You look better already." He leaned down to kiss my forehead, and I could smell Jessica's perfume on his shirt. "I found something interesting today," I said, holding up the receipt. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, panic, and finally, a kind of defensive anger that I'd never seen before. "You went through my pockets?" "Your jacket was on the chair. The receipt fell out." "Amelia, listen." "You took her to Lawrence," I interrupted. "While I was in the hospital, you took Jessica to our restaurant. Lawrence was where Ethan had taken me for our 1-year anniversary, where he told me he loved me for the first time, where he'd hinted about marriage and forever and building a life together." "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "It was a work dinner. She'd just closed a huge deal and the team wanted to celebrate at midnight on Saturday." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I watched him scramble for an explanation that would make sense, that would turn him back into the man I thought I was in love with. "The thing is," I continued conversationally, "I don't actually care anymore." That seemed to surprise him more than anything else I could have said. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't care if it was a date, or a work dinner, or a coincidence. I don't care if you're sleeping with her or just thinking about it. I don't care about your excuses or your reasons or your promises to do better." I stood up slowly, favouring my injured side. "What I care about is that when I needed you most, you weren't there, and that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are." Ethan's face was flushing red. "You're being dramatic. I explained about work." "You explained about work while you were posting Instagram stories from a bar with Jessica." His mouth snapped shut. "I saw them, Ethan, before I found the receipt, so please, let's not pretend this is about my imagination running wild." For a moment, we just stared at each other. 4 years of shared history hanging between us like a bridge that was already burning. Then Ethan's expression shifted into something I'd never seen before. Something cold and calculating. "Fine," he said. "You want the truth? Jessica and I have been seeing each other for 3 months. She's everything you're not. Successful, ambitious, fun to be around. She doesn't spend her weekends crying about her job or complaining about her family or making me feel guilty for having a social life." Each word hit like a physical blow, but I kept my face neutral. I'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. Hearing him list my flaws like evidence in a case against me was different. "She doesn't make everything about herself," he continued, warming to his theme. "When she has a problem, she handles it. She doesn't call me crying and demanding I drop everything to rescue her." "I was in the hospital, and you survived without me, didn't you? Proves my point." The cruelty of it took my breath away. This was the man I'd shared a bed with for 4 years, the man I'd cooked for and cared for, and built dreams with. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my apartment." "Our apartment," he corrected. "My name's on the lease too." "Then I'll leave." I walked to the bedroom and started pulling clothes from our shared closet. My clothes. It was amazing how little space my life actually took up when you removed his presence from it. Ethan followed me, his anger shifting to panic as he realised I was serious. "Amelia, wait. Let's talk about this like adults. We can work through this." I didn't answer. I just kept packing. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You think you're going to find someone better? Someone who'll put up with your neediness and your moods and your..." I turned around then, and whatever he saw in my face made him take a step back. "You know what, Ethan? You're right. I am needy. I needed you to care when I was hurt. I needed you to be honest with me. I needed you to be the man you pretended to be for 4 years. I zipped my suitcase closed. But I don't need you anymore." That night, I slept on Maya's couch and cried until I had no tears left. Not for Ethan exactly, but for the version of myself that had believed his promises. For the future I'd imagined that had never really existed. Maya made tea and didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes. She just sat with me while I grieved the death of my old life. "What are you going to do now?" she asked finally. I thought about it. Really thought about it. For 4 years, every decision I'd made had been filtered through Ethan's opinions and preferences. Where to live, what jobs to take, how to spend my free time. I'd moulded myself into what I thought he wanted, shrinking my ambitions to fit his comfort zone. "I don't know," I said, "but for the first time in years, I get to decide for myself." The next morning, I called in sick to my job at the marketing firm, where I'd been spinning my wheels for 3 years. Then, I opened my laptop and started researching graduate programs in data science. It was something I'd always been interested in, but had never pursued because Ethan thought it was too technical for me. Because he'd convinced me I wasn't smart enough for that kind of work. Lying in that hospital bed, I'd had a lot of time to think. About the predictive models I'd built for fun. About the patterns I saw in everything from social media, trends to customer behaviour. About the dreams I'd set aside to make room for someone else's vision of my life. It was time to stop making myself smaller, to fit into other people's expectations. As I filled out application after application, I thought about what Patricia the nurse had said. Some people show their true colours when things get tough. Ethan had shown me his true colours. But, more importantly, I was finally ready to show the world mine. And they were going to be magnificent. 6 months later, I was living in a studio apartment near campus and surviving on instant noodles and determination. The acceptance letter from Stanford's data science program had arrived on a Tuesday. Full scholarship, plus a research assistantship that would barely cover my expenses, but would give me access to some of the most advanced AI research in the country. I'd stared at that letter for 20 minutes before calling Maya. "I got in," I whispered into the phone. "Stanford? Amelia? Oh my God!" I could hear her jumping up and down in her kitchen. It made me smile for the first time in weeks. The transition hadn't been easy. My old life kept trying to pull me back. Ethan had texted me exactly 3 times after I moved out. The first was angry, the second was manipulative, the third was pathetic. "Jessica dumped me. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I deleted that one without responding. Whatever satisfaction I might have gotten from his downfall was overshadowed by how little I actually cared. He'd become irrelevant to my story so quickly it was almost funny. What wasn't funny was how much I'd underestimated my own capabilities. Professor Chen, my research supervisor, was a legend in machine learning. She'd built 3 successful startups and held patents that every tech company in Silicon Valley wanted a license. She was also terrifying. "Your undergraduate work is adequate," she'd said during our first meeting, flipping through my portfolio with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. "But adequate won't cut it here. I need exceptional. Can you be exceptional, Amelia?" I thought about lying in that hospital bed, about the moment I'd realised I'd been settling for adequate my entire life. "Yes," I said. She looked up from my portfolio, studying my face like she was reading code. We'll see." The first project she assigned me was supposed to take a full semester. I finished it in 6 weeks. It was a predictive model for early disease detection using social media patterns. The kind of work that could save lives if implemented correctly. The kind of work that made my old marketing job feel like arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Professor Chen reviewed my results in silence, her expression unreadable. "This is graduate-level work," she finally said. "I am a graduate student." "No," she shook her head. "This is second-year PhD-level work. How long have you been coding?" "Seriously? About 8 months." She leaned back in her chair, really looking at me for the first time since I'd started the program. "You've been wasting your time, haven't you? Before this." It wasn't really a question. Yes, I said, I was. That's when everything changed. Professor Chen introduced me to Dr. James Rodriguez, who ran a startup incubator focused on healthcare AI. Within a month, I was consulting on 3 different projects while still maintaining my perfect GPA. The money was good. Better than good. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't checking my bank balance before buying groceries. But the real high was the work itself. Building algorithms that could predict patient outcomes, creating systems that could identify potential drug interactions before they harmed someone, writing code that actually mattered. I was at my laptop at 2 a.m. on a Friday when my phone buzzed with a notification I'd forgotten existed. LinkedIn. Ethan Williams has viewed your profile. I clicked on his profile out of curiosity. He was still at the same company, still in the same position. His bio mentioned relationship building and client satisfaction in ways that made me remember why I'd found his job so soul-crushingly boring. There was a new photo of him with Jessica at some corporate event. She was wearing the kind of dress I used to buy specifically to match his idea of what looked professional. They looked perfectly mediocre together. I was about to close the app when I saw his post from earlier that day. Excited to announce our team's new client partnership. When you believe in your vision and never give up, amazing things happen. #hustle, #never, give up, #blessed. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. This was the man who'd convinced me I wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't driven enough, wasn't enough. I screenshotted the post and sent it to Maya with a single word. Really? Her response was immediate. Is he seriously taking credit for work Jessica probably did? Also, have you seen your own LinkedIn lately? I hadn't. I'd been too busy actually working to manage my online presence. My profile views had exploded. 3 different recruiters had messaged me in the past week. 2 venture capital firms wanted to discuss potential opportunities. Stanford had featured my research in their newsletter. But the message that made my hands shake was from someone named Rebecca Martinez. Hi, Amelia. I'm the founder of Health Tech Innovations, and we're launching a revolutionary platform for early disease detection. Your work on social media pattern analysis is exactly what we need for our next development phase. Would you be interested in discussing a partnership? This could be very lucrative for both of us. I Googled Health Tech Innovations. They'd just closed a $50 million Series B funding round. Rebecca Martinez had been featured on the cover of Forbes as one of the 30 under 30 changing healthcare. She wanted to partner with me. I read the message 3 times before it sank in. 6 months ago, I'd been begging my cheating boyfriend to visit me in the hospital. Now, one of the most successful women in tech wanted my expertise. I crafted a careful response, trying to sound professional and interested without seeming desperate. Then, I closed my laptop and allowed myself exactly 5 minutes to feel proud of how far I'd come. The meeting with Rebecca was scheduled for the following week at their headquarters in downtown San Francisco. I bought my first real business suit and spent 2 hours researching everyone on their leadership team. Their offices occupied 3 floors of a gleaming tower with views of the bay. The reception area looked like something from a tech magazine, all clean lines and expensive furniture. Rebecca Martinez was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like I'd imagined. She was younger than her photos suggested, with the kind of focused intensity that made you want to sit up straighter, but she was also warm in a way that put me immediately at ease. Your work is impressive, she said, gesturing to a conference room where my research was already pulled up on the wall-mounted screens. But I'm more interested in your story. Professor Chen says you've only been doing this seriously for 8 months. That's right. What were you doing before? I thought about lying, making up something that sounded more impressive than wasting my life on a man who didn't deserve me. Instead, I told her the truth. Rebecca listened without interrupting as I explained about the accident, the hospital, the betrayal that had finally woken me up to what I was capable of. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You know what I think? She finally said. I think the best thing that ever happened to you was that car accident. It was such a strange thing to say that I almost laughed. Because it ended my relationship? Because it showed you who you really are, Rebecca said, and more importantly, who you aren't. She offered me a position that day. Not an internship or a junior role, but a real partnership. Director of Predictive Analytics with equity and a salary that was more than Ethan made in 2 years. I said yes without hesitation. Walking out of that building, I felt like I was floating. Everything that had felt impossible 8 months ago was suddenly not just possible, but happening. I called Maya from the sidewalk. I got it, I said as soon as she answered. The job, the partnership, everything. Amelia, oh my God, I am so proud of you. I keep waiting for someone to tell me this is all a mistake, I admitted. Like, I'm going to wake up and still be that person who thought her biggest accomplishment was keeping Ethan happy. That person is gone, Maya said firmly, and good riddance, she was holding you back. That night, I treated myself to dinner at a restaurant I would never have been able to afford a year ago. I ordered wine and dessert and didn't think once about whether Ethan would approve of my choices. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed with another LinkedIn notification. Another profile view from Ethan Williams. This time, I smiled. Let him look. Let him see exactly what he'd walked away from. Let him realise that the woman he'd called needy and dramatic was building something extraordinary while he was still playing office politics and taking credit for other people's work. I raised my wine glass to the empty chair across from me. Thanks for the motivation, I said quietly. Tomorrow, I would start the job that would change everything. But tonight, I was just going to sit here and appreciate how far I'd travelled from that hospital bed where this whole journey began. The best was yet to come. 18 months at Health Tech Innovations, and I had become the person other people called when they needed miracles. Our disease prediction algorithm had just prevented a meningitis outbreak at a college campus in Ohio. 47 students who would have been hospitalised or, worse, were getting treatment before symptoms even appeared. The CDC was calling it a breakthrough in preventive healthcare. The media attention was overwhelming. Forbes, TechCrunch, CNN, everyone wanted to interview the data scientist who's saving lives with social media. I'd given so many interviews that Maya had started keeping a running list of my most ridiculous quotes. Algorithms are just math with good intentions. Really, Amelia? I was nervous. I defended myself over coffee. The reporter had those predatory eyes. You've been on national television 6 times this month. How are you still nervous about reporters? She had a point, but success felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life through a very convincing filter. The real validation came from unexpected places. Dr. Rodriguez had offered me a position leading my own research lab. 3 different universities wanted me for their faculty, and yesterday Rebecca had pulled me into her office with news that made my head spin. The Innovation Excellence Awards, she'd said, sliding an elegant invitation across her desk. You're nominated in 2 categories: Emerging Leader in Technology and Healthcare Innovation of the Year. I'd stared at the heavy cardstock, feeling like I was reading fiction. Rebecca, this is completely deserved, she'd finished. The ceremony is in 3 weeks. Black tie, open bar, all the people who matter in tech and healthcare. You're going to win one of these, Amelia. Probably both. The Innovation Excellence Awards were held annually in San Francisco's most prestigious hotel. It was the kind of event where billion-dollar deals got made over cocktail hour and careers were launched during dinner conversation. It was also, apparently, the kind of event that attracted people from my past. Maya was helping me shop for a dress when my phone rang. Unknown number with a local area code. Hello? Amelia? It's Jessica. I stopped walking so suddenly that Maya bumped into me. Jessica, I repeated, putting the phone on speaker. Maya's eyebrows shot up. I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from your old company's directory. What do you want, Jessica? I wanted to congratulate you, she said quickly, on all your success. It's really amazing what you've accomplished. There was something off about her tone, too careful, like she was reading from a script. Thank you, I said cautiously. I also wanted to... Well, I felt like I owed you an apology for what happened between Ethan and me. It wasn't right. Maya grabbed my arm, eyes wide. This was not where either of us had expected this conversation to go. Okay, I said. Apology noted. The thing is, Jessica continued, and now I could hear the real reason for her call creeping into her voice. Ethan doesn't know I'm calling you. He's been having a really hard time lately, with his career and everything, and that concerns me. How he talks about you sometimes, about how successful you've become. I think he realizes he made a mistake. I looked at Maya, who was making exaggerated gagging motions. Jessica, I said slowly, are you calling to ask me to throw your ex-boyfriend a bone? No, that's not. I just thought maybe if you knew he was struggling, you might what? Feel sorry for him? Offer him a job? Pretend the last 2 years never happened? The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if she'd hung up. He's going to be at the Innovation Awards, she finally said. His company bought a table. I just thought you should know. And there it was, the real reason for the call. Thanks for the heads up, I said. I'll be sure to wear my best dress. I hung up before she could respond. Wow, Maya said. That was illuminating. She's scared, I realised. She's scared he's going to see me at the awards and remember what he gave up. Good, Maya said viciously. Let him remember. Let him spend the whole night watching you accept awards and knowing he could have been part of your story if he hadn't been such a spectacular idiot. The dress we found was perfect. Midnight blue silk that made me look like I belonged in rooms where important decisions were made. Maya insisted on jewellery that cost more than my old monthly rent. You're not just representing yourself anymore, she argued when I balked at the price tag. You're representing every woman who's ever been told she wasn't good enough. Make them remember you. The night of the ceremony, I stood in front of my hotel room mirror and barely recognised the woman looking back at me. Confident, powerful, completely self-possessed. 2 years ago, I would have been checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if Ethan had texted me his approval of my outfit. Tonight, I didn't even know where my phone was. The ballroom was exactly as magnificent as I'd imagined. Crystal chandeliers, perfectly arranged tables, and 500 of the most influential people in technology and healthcare. I spotted the CEO of Google at the bar, the founder of a major pharmaceutical company holding court near the stage. This was my world now. Rebecca found me during cocktail hour. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to throw up or faint? Possibly both. Perfect, she grinned. That means you care. You're going to be brilliant up there. The first award was Healthcare Innovation of the Year. When they called my name, the applause felt like thunder. I walked to the stage on steady legs, accepted the crystal trophy, and delivered the speech I'd practiced 50 times in my mirror. 2 years ago, I was lying in a hospital bed, wondering if anyone would even notice if I disappeared. I began. Tonight, I'm standing here because I learned that the most powerful algorithm of all is the one that runs on determination and refusal to accept limitations. The applause was deafening. In the audience, I could see Rebecca wiping away tears. But I wasn't looking at Rebecca. 3 tables from the front, sitting between Jessica and a man I didn't recognise, was Ethan. He was clapping politely, but his face was the colour of old paper. Jessica had her hand on his arm. Whether to comfort or restrain him, I couldn't tell. Our eyes met for exactly 3 seconds, long enough for me to see the recognition, the shock, and something that might have been regret. Then I looked away. The second award, Emerging Leader in Technology, came an hour later. This time, when I walked to the stage, I felt like I was floating. The trophy was heavier, the applause longer, the speech more personal. Someone once told me I wasn't ambitious enough, I said, looking out at the audience. They said I wasn't driven enough, smart enough, successful enough. They were right about one thing. I wasn't enough. For them. But it turns out I was more than enough for myself. When I returned to my table, my phone was buzzing with notifications. LinkedIn messages from recruiters, Twitter mentions from people I'd only dreamed of meeting. A text from Maya that just said, "That's my best friend," in all caps. And buried in the flood of congratulations was one message that made me pause. "You look happy." "I'm glad." No name, but I knew who it was from. I deleted it without responding and turned back to the celebration happening around me. Later, much later, after the dinner and the networking and the endless stream of people wanting to shake my hand, I found myself in the hotel elevator with my 2 trophies and a purse full of business cards from people who wanted to change the world with me. The elevator stopped on the 3rd floor and 3 people got on. Jessica, the man I didn't recognise, and Ethan. He looked tired, older, like someone who'd been making the wrong choices for a very long time. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "You deserved it." I studied his face, looking for the charm that had once convinced me to rearrange my entire life around his convenience. It wasn't there anymore. Maybe it had never been there at all. "Yes," I said simply. "I did." The elevator reached the lobby, and I walked out without looking back. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, and I realised I had absolutely no idea what came next in my story. But for the first time in my life, that felt like freedom instead of fear. 3 months after the awards ceremony, I was sitting in a conference room with 7 venture capitalists, about to become the youngest woman to ever secure $100 million in Series A funding. "The market validation is unprecedented," said Margaret Chen from Pinnacle Ventures, sliding the term sheet across the mahogany table. "Your algorithm prevented 3 major disease outbreaks in the past quarter alone. We're not just investing in technology, we're investing in the future of preventive healthcare." I signed my name with the same Mont Blanc pen I'd bought to celebrate my first award. The ink was still drying when my phone buzzed with a notification that would change everything. Google alert, Ethan Williams. I almost ignored it. I'd set up the alert 2 years ago during a moment of weakness and kept forgetting to delete it. Usually, it was just meaningless corporate announcements from his marketing firm. This time was different. Local marketing executive arrested in healthcare data breach scandal. My blood turned to ice water. I excused myself from the celebration and found a quiet corner to read the full article. The words blurred together at first, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Ethan Williams, 29, was arrested yesterday in connection with an illegal data mining operation targeting hospital patient records. Williams allegedly used his access at Henderson Marketing to obtain confidential medical information, which was then sold to pharmaceutical companies for targeted advertising campaigns. The scheme, which may have affected over 50,000 patients, was discovered when cybersecurity experts noticed unusual data patterns in social media advertising. Sources close to the investigation say Williams was specifically targeting patients with chronic illnesses and mental health conditions. "This is a gross violation of patient privacy and trust," said Detective Sarah Morrison. "We're talking about people's most sensitive medical information being exploited for profit." I read it 3 times before the full implications hit me. Then I called Maya. "Did you see the news?" I asked as soon as she answered. "About Ethan? Oh my God, Amelia. Are you okay?" I think... I paused, my mind racing through connections I'd been too naive to see before. "Maya, I think I need to call you back." I hung up and immediately dialed a number I knew by heart. Detective Morrison, this is Dr. Amelia Chen. I believe I have information relevant to the Ethan Williams case. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a police station, staring at a timeline that made me physically sick. The data mining started approximately 2 years ago, Detective Morrison explained, pointing to a chart on the whiteboard. Right around the time you were hospitalized for your accident. That can't be a coincidence, I whispered. We don't think it is. Williams had access to Henderson Marketing's client database, which included several healthcare organizations. But he needed a way to identify vulnerable targets, patients who might be susceptible to certain types of advertising. She turned to face me directly. Dr. Chen, we found evidence that Williams accessed your hospital records without authorization. Multiple times. The room spun. What? Your medical information, your insurance data, even your therapy records from after the accident? It appears he was using your case as a template to identify other vulnerable patients. I thought I was going to be sick. He used my trauma to hurt other people. It gets worse. Detective Morrison sat down across from me. We found communications between Williams and Jessica Martinez, his girlfriend at the time. They were specifically targeting patients with mental health issues, people dealing with relationship trauma, individuals recovering from accidents. Jessica, the woman who'd called to warn me about seeing Ethan at the awards ceremony. The woman who'd apologized for their affair. How long have you known about Jessica's involvement? We arrested her this morning. Turns out she wasn't just his girlfriend. She was his business partner. The whole operation was her idea. My hands were shaking now. The night of my accident, when Ethan was supposedly at work. He was meeting with Jessica to plan the initial data breach. They used your hospitalization as their first test case. Your emotional vulnerability, your social media activity during recovery, your medical bills, they turned all of it into a business model. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated that I couldn't process it. This wasn't just about cheating or lying. They had weaponized my pain and used it to exploit thousands of other people. Dr. Chen, Detective Morrison continued gently, there's something else. The reason they targeted you specifically wasn't random. Jessica Martinez had been tracking your academic work for months before your accident. She knew about your potential in data science. What are you saying? We think they were trying to steal your ideas? The social media pattern analysis that made you famous? Williams had detailed notes about your undergraduate projects, dating back to when you were still together. The room tilted. Everything I'd built, everything I'd accomplished, had they been planning to take that too? But here's the thing, Detective Morrison smiled grimly. They were too stupid to actually understand your work. The algorithms they tried to build were garbage. They ended up just selling raw medical data instead because they couldn't replicate your innovations. I laughed. It was a broken, hysterical sound, but it was still laughter. They tried to steal my life's work and failed because they weren't smart enough to understand it. Pretty much. And their failure is what got them caught. If they'd been better at math, they might never have been discovered. I thought about all the times Ethan had called me too technical, too ambitious, too focused on work that didn't matter. He'd been studying me the entire time, trying to figure out how to monetize my brain. What happens now? They're both facing federal charges. Healthcare fraud, identity theft, violation of HIPAA laws. They're looking at 20 years minimum. I walked out of that police station feeling like I'd been turned inside out. Everything I thought I knew about my own story was wrong. The accident that had saved me had also been the beginning of their plan to destroy me. But they'd underestimated something crucial: my capacity to rebuild myself into someone they could never touch again. A week later, I was back in the same elevator where I'd last seen Ethan. This time, I was heading to a press conference where I would announce my company's new initiative, a free platform to help victims of medical data theft recover their privacy and seek justice. The elevator stopped on the 3rd floor, and for a moment, I panicked that history was about to repeat itself. Instead, Patricia walked in. Patricia, the nurse who'd comforted me in the hospital 2 years ago. "Dr. Chen?" She stared at me in amazement. "I can't believe it's you." "Patricia, what are you doing here?" "I am interviewing for a position with your company, patient advocacy coordinator." She shook her head, smiling. "When I saw your name on the job posting, I had to apply. You've come so far from that scared girl in the hospital bed." "You know what?" I said as we reached the lobby. "That scared girl saved my life. She just didn't know it yet." The press conference went perfectly. Questions about the data breach, about victim support, about how we turn this violation into an opportunity to protect others. I answered every one with the clarity that only comes from surviving your worst nightmare and discovering you're stronger than you ever imagined. Afterwards, a young reporter approached me. "Dr. Chen, one more question. Do you think you would have achieved all this success if your ex-boyfriend hadn't betrayed you?" I considered the question seriously. "You know what? Probably not. I was too busy trying to be someone else's idea of perfect. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is also the thing that sets you free." That night, Maya and I sat on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. My 2 trophies were catching the moonlight on the table between us. "So," she said, raising her wine glass, "what's the moral of this story?" I thought about it, about the girl who'd been so desperate for love that she'd made herself smaller to fit into someone else's life, about the woman who'd risen from a hospital bed to build an empire, about the twisted path between those 2 people. "The moral," I said, clinking my glass against hers, "is that sometimes the person who breaks your heart is actually just clearing space for the life you were meant to live. And sometimes," Maya added with a wicked grin, "karma comes with federal prison sentences." We drank to that. The next morning, my algorithm identified and prevented another disease outbreak. 23 people who would never know how close they come to danger. 23 lives saved by math and determination and the refusal to stay broken. It was, I decided, a pretty good way to change the world, even if it had started with the worst night of my life.